No break, no jam, no sense. A joro jam, a joro, joro, joro. Attention.
Nah, today we have two special guests. I mean, to be fair, it's just
You
Savannah.
sound so excited to have us here.
Hey guys, my name is Abibat and
This is Savannah.
cool.
It's good to have you guys here.
It's good to have
Thank
you guys.
you. Thank you so much.
First guest, how you guys feel?
I feel good.
Very blessed, very privileged,
Yeah,
very honoured.
Send me
Yeah.
the check for this, you know, my receipt.
All your
And
royalties
it-
are paid in full.
Thank you very
I
much.
don't know about that.
That's not a promise, man.
I don't know about
Unpaid
that.
black labour yet again.
At least we know about your current financial
Oh,
status.
I. Okay. That's how we're starting.
You know
Yeah.
your
Come
friends.
on. That's what we're doing. Calm. I like this. Keep it going.
Oh, no. I'm just playing with you.
That's what
That's
they
good. I
say.
like it. I
Fast
like
goes,
it.
fast
Fast
goes.
goes. 1-0.
1-0. How's life? Let's just start from there. How's that? How's everything?
Well, I'm feeling really anxious right now. It's the first time I've been with people other than my mother. Guys, just so everyone's happy and comfortable, I have the antibodies, apparently.
What the hell does that mean, bitch?
You didn't tell us this when you stepped in here.
That's good! Isn't that good?
Okay, alright.
Sorry about my
How are you,
phone.
Abiba? How are you?
I'm good. I'm living life, you know, my brows are drawn, you know.
Ooh.
Wow!
Ooh.
Go in the corner of my eye, you
Give
know.
them.
Yeah.
Give them.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is that!
Yes,
This is that!
You know, I'm feeling good, really optimistic, you know, ready to get this money.
Okay.
Come on. Alright then, man. Also, she also has a YouTube channel. We're gonna put that in.
Ooh,
The
yeah,
description.
if
Link
I
in the
look
description.
different on like any of the socials, this is not my real face. This is just my part-time face, so you know.
No free carbs.
No freak. She'll pay us. Don't worry.
100%.
She'll pay us. Abi?
Next question.
I think everybody's dodging what we actually came here to discuss today.
Yeah, oh,
It's
sorry.
gonna-
Sorry,
it's such a-
sir.
Let's bring it back to
It's
the
going to be
table.
such a big topic. isn't
Yeah,
it?
such a big
Yeah,
topic.
it is.
What are we talking about today, Fine?
We're talking about feminism.
Ooh.
Yes.
Dun dun dun.
That's cringe, man.
We're keeping it.
Yeah, we're keeping it all.
So, do you think we start with like a definition? What is feminism?
I was literally thinking that, but I wanted to hear everyone's definition first before I look at the actual.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah.
I think we should start from you guys.
Okay. Should I start?
I think we
I
should
see
start
what you
from
did
us.
there.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah,
I think
you
we
guys
should
start.
from us,
Let's
yeah.
go with
Oh, he's
the
come on then.
What is the definition of
Just-
feminism? Ohiz?
I think feminism is just looking for all-round equality. That's the simplest definition. Like all-round equality for everyone, regardless of gender. That's it. Okiki, what do you think it is?
I think feminism is it's looking for equality for women because they're so disadvantaged in society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
I mean, so far so good. I think we all agree.
I think we all agree.
Yeah, I've been giving you a
I think
definition.
so.
Yeah, equality.
Okay.
Equality of the sexes.
Yeah.
Equal opportunity. Equal pay. This is where my praise ends.
Then it
Okay,
becomes
fair
bad.
enough. Fair enough.
I would say my definition of feminism has to be equality,
Mhm.
choice, and inclusion and intersectionality.
Mm.
And there are a lot of words there, but choice is one of the most important things for me in feminism. It's the fact that as a woman, even if another woman does something that you might not agree with, be it how they dress or how they look or choices they make in their life, as long as they have the choice to make that decision, then that is part of the equality within genders and between genders. Unless I'm period.
Okay.
Word.
Okay.
Savannah, hold on.
I think I agree. It's more like I agree with the combination of everyone's definitions. And then I was actually thinking about Ohiz's especially, because you know how you said regardless of gender.
Mhm.
I wonder if it's regardless of gender or with the consideration of gender, if that makes sense. Like what along gendered lines, like what it means to be different genders, or like, you know, male, female, etc. etc. But
What do you think?
Ifeanyi, I know you have your thoughts towards the
I
topic.
didn't say nothing.
No, no, you have.
he says thoughts. He said
We
your
know you have
thoughts.
some thoughts on the topic. Do you have anything to say?
Anything negative? No, I'm a man.
Okay.
And I was recently made aware of the fact that you can't truly understand what someone else is going through if you don't fall within that category, if you know what I mean. Like a white person cannot truly know what it feels like to be black, and I can't truly know what it feels like to be a woman. So I want to let them talk until they say something that I don't necessarily agree with. And I think it will soon come. So yeah, I think they should take the lead. But what she said about like giving women the freedom is a very big point, because I think the movement has become this thing where people believe there is only one way a woman can be. I don't know how to put it. I'll give you an example. Yeah. So we talk about how women have been domesticated and everything, and now there's this picture of the ideal woman. You must be working, this, that. But there are some women who honestly want to do want to stay at home. I don't want that to sound like I'm being, there's some, but feminists, well, this is a generalization. Some of them, see, should I say they look down on that woman? There's sort of like a classist
see it as like
thing.
An internalization of patriarchy. Like why are you happy or complacent with being at home?
Yes.
Which is like, people then again have the choice to make that distinct, to think that. But I get what you mean, like having the freedom to want to stay at home. But I guess someone would want to ask, why are you okay with doing that? Yeah. It depends what society you're in. Like we can speak from like a Western perspective, but it's always limited.
Exactly, and I think even from like in African homes as well, a lot of our mothers, they do have that. They're quite domesticated, but then at the same time as well, they do work. And some aunties, for example, you literally see they're born and bred to serve their husbands, and they genuinely enjoy it. Some of them really do, and some of them really don't. And I think by looking at the women who really do, it might seem a bit weird, like patriarchy is the only framework we have to work in. We're not post-patriarchy. We don't know anything apart from our patriarchal world. Ooh, English. So it's kind of like that is what they have to work with. I don't blame some women for even wanting to adhere to that system, because it's been in place for a very long time. And even if they don't know any better, as long as that's their choice, like I'm here for it. Like
that's the thing though, whether they know any better, because some people think, or some women do think that is the ideal model, to have somebody who's primarily working and someone who's at home to focus literally on the kids exclusively, which they think is like a maternal role. So that is the version of the optimal way to have a family.
Don't you think that's the problem? Like if they think that, like if a woman thinks that, it's okay for her to stay at home, yes, it's her decision, but is it okay for her to think that? Don't you think she's
personally, I don't, but I'm exploring whether it's a valid perspective or if it's just internalized like sexism, like how I would critique a black person who I think is internalizing racism, if that makes sense.
But the thing is, you can't actually know.
Yeah, because I guess it's speaking hypothetics, isn't it? Like
I don't know. I personally don't see a problem with it, even if it might be conscious decision. If they feel in themselves they're self-active and this is what they've chosen, because nowadays people really can go to work if they really, really want to, and if she doesn't want to, and the husband's providing a lot for her, it doesn't mean, as long as there's a choice there, even if she decides I want to work tomorrow, as long as she can make that decision to go to work, and she decides tomorrow, you know what, I want to wash my husband's, I don't know, trousers, like go for it.
Yeah, that's something I was gonna say. Like feminism is the freedom to choose how you want to act in the house, like your role in the house and everything like that. It's the freedom to choose, because if you want to be the working wife where you go to work and what have you, that's okay. If you want to be a housewife, that's also okay. It's just the freedom to be able to pick what you want to do.
Exactly, but for me personally, that can never be me, and it can just never be me. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't look down on it, but for me, I just can't imagine myself asking my husband, honey, what do you want to eat when you come back? Yeah, just that can never be me. But
We're far away from even normalising the idea of the man staying at home, if that makes sense. It still is weird
Far,
to
far.
Oh, my dead body.
Yeah.
Why?
So,
No,
let's
I mean for me to stay home.
Okay.
And-
What if all
But
guys
why?
don't want to stay home?
No, personally, I just don't want to.
Yeah, why though? Everyone's
Why?
got a reason.
No, I want to work, man.
Yeah.
You know, I have goals and aspirations and things I want to achieve that I wouldn't be able to achieve if
Can
I
I ask a
stay at
question?
home.
That's interesting though. You acknowledge that you wouldn't be able to achieve it if you stay at home.
Yeah.
That's the whole issue of why women are concerned about being the ones to stay at home, because they can't. That feeling that why can't you do both? If women can do both, why wouldn't you be able to do both?
exactly.
Do you get what I mean?
But we
Why?
wouldn't be
I
able
know
to
the
do
system doesn't allow you perhaps to have the same time off as women
Yeah.
are
I
like
was about
allowed.
to say that.
But okay, but if it was, would you? I feel like you would still say that you'd go over your dead body.
To stay at home,
Yeah.
it's my child. You know, I wouldn't just come. Look, there are lots of things you have to consider when we're talking about what parents should stay at home. First of all, like you just said, women get full pay, men get half, and we don't get as much time off. It depends on the type of job the person is doing, and I'm not just talking about who. For example, if my wife's salary can carry the family while I stay at home, then that would be the sensible thing.
Yeah, that's
The
logical.
most rational.
That's a rational
Yeah.
thing. I said over my dead body.
That was the extreme.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
it's just an exaggeration.
Yeah, because I said it before, like in the event that I'm financially like well off in the period when I do have a child, I don't mind staying at home. Personally, I don't mind staying at home to at least help in the house with the kid. Like it's just society.
I was just gonna ask a question. I was gonna ask
Yeah.
if you have a kid, if you guys had a kid right now, would you stay at home?
If I had a kid right now.
Yeah, well,
Right now.
not right now. But let me rephrase. If you had a kid when you're married, would you stay at home?
I think it depends. I feel like, as much as, in my opinion, I feel like even biologically speaking, for women, I don't want to say women are more maternal, but in terms of our physical biology,
Thank you.
it just sometimes it actually just makes more sense. It's not to say that you can choose not to stay at home, but for me, when I say like the development of a child, like I literally want to be at home to breastfeed my child because I feel like it's a really important thing to do, and that sometimes may not allow me to actually go to work. In terms of physical biology, I think women, in that regards of what they have, can be a bit more nurturing, but
The thing is, this is like even that's speaking from understandably like from a point of privilege that we'll be able to like I would hopefully be able to like spend the maximum amount of time at home not working. Like look, I don't look just naturally now. I don't know where I'll be at like by the time if I have kids, but it's like right now I don't feel like I'm the most maternal person that loves kids and so on. So like it's not like I don't want to have children, but I don't think it's like something I'm amazing at.
I hear you.
But the point is, so based off that, imagine if my husband's a lot better with children than me and like educating them, etc., etc. But then you just put in biology, like most studies would show that breastfeeding, for example, is like the healthiest thing. So just practically speaking, when you look at like the rationality, it does make sense. And most studies like that talk
So
about.
women are more nurturing than men.
I'm saying not natural.
No,
necessarily.
in terms of like
It's not biology and nurturing isn't the same. Biology is literally saying
This is what you can function. You can function these things.
the main reason. This is what your body. It's like structure for function basically. It doesn't mean nurturing because nurturing is a very like. It depends. It really depends. In my opinion, my dad is possibly a lot more nurturing than my mom, and my mom has the physical biology to actually take care of me in terms of breastfeeding me as a kid. But I think my dad is more nurturing in terms of raising, educating a child.
Interesting.
And so it's just that kind of like dynamic. It's not to say I'm saying like biology literally gives you no choice. It's kind of like.
This is what it is.
Yeah, because privilege would allow even both parents to be at home. Like, imagine for the first 7 years of your child, that would be mad. Like to be able to have that, but most people don't have that, and so like being able to balance.
People just can't have the option because you need to make the money to feed that child.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just to like widen the discussion a lot more as well, because I talk about biology because obviously not all women can actually do these things as well. In terms of like not all women can breastfeed their kids, for example. And
so not
things
being
like that.
judged for that.
Exactly. So nurturing is it's very dependent. It can apply to both genders, all genders. So yeah.
That word is even inherently sounds like feminine because of the way that we use it. Whereas like for men should be comfortable to be nurturing and to like describe themselves as such. I think that's what feminism is about, but like obviously there's so many strands and people who claim the title. It's like with Black Lives Matter. Like I would kind of get irritated when people critique the Black Lives Matter, and I'm like, what is Black Lives Matter to you? Because literally everyone who uses the hashtag has their own version of what it is, whereas there's the separate organisation. Whereas with feminism, again, it is low-key what you make it, as long as, you know, I guess you're seeking equality in some way or another.
In that regard, I
Is
love
it
it.
It's a problem.
It's a problem.
But that's the thing with every single thing. If you think it's a problem, meanings of things will always generationally, meanings of things have always changed, and they're always going to change. And as humans, the fact that we can't even read each other's mind, there's no thing set in stone. It's even saying truth. The word truth itself means different things to different persons. Some people might mean not lying. Some people truth means preventing someone to harm. Some people truth means what I can
but
see
then
and what I
there is
believe.
deep truth.
No,
Do you think there
I
is?
don't think there's a
Yes, there is deep truth.
there's no universal meaning of every single thing. Like things are not. Things are not. I feel like we all have ideas of what things might be. There might be a general consensus, but to fully understand as like a whole and have like a whole universal consensus on what some things mean, I think it's kind of almost impossible. Even like rape is a charged one as well. Some people, some people it's just like, yeah, some men literally can't get the fact that it's not until you literally penetrate someone that is deemed as rape, literally, that meaning, rape to me is just lack of consent. I know it's a bit far reaching, but it's just the fact that different people would hear that word and what comes into their minds is literally so different. So just in that regard.
So you don't think it's rape if there's no penetration?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying some
That's what some
men,
people
some men, that's what they think. They literally feel like you need to, because when they hear rape, they feel like you need to physically.
Yeah, rape culture, as soon as you hear that, people dissociate because like, well, I ain't no rapist. Whereas it's like talking about the wider spectrum of what attitudes and behaviours exacerbate or like perpetuate rape culture.
Like harassment, for example.
Yeah,
like
stuff
constantly.
like
It's just the same thing with like feminism as well. Like to some like some people might call let's throw feminism to them literally means something totally different, because when they talk about feminism, it's just equality of the sexes. Yeah, let's go for it. But for me, I literally see it from like a black perspective. It needs to be equality with intersectionality as well in between it, like looking at where do black women stand, where do trans black women, where do they stand between this definition and meaning. So I really feel like as much as some word is there, to me what I would see as feminism literally differs so much more.
And that's on the point of truth.
Yeah.
I think the question is a lot, is there a truth, an objective truth? And then is there an objective truth but it like can't be reached in terms of like we've all got our own perspectives, if you get what I mean. So that's what I like about feminism, which took me a while because I had to come to uni to get it. But it was like feminism speaks about having a gendered lens when you look at things. Now gender shouldn't necessarily be associated with just being female, but what is the male perspective? And also then I apply that to other stuff, so like race for example, like what is my perspective and how can I get a lot of the time this white person to understand what I'm trying to say, or even this other black person who hasn't had the same life experience as me or many others. I think it's all about, what I'm saying is everyone has a lens, and until people are aware of the lens that they've been navigating the world with, it's going to be very difficult because people do believe that the lens like reveals what the truth is to them, if that makes sense. So
Savannah, you were saying something?
yeah, I think that's why feminism's really grown on me as a theory, because it opens up doors to the concept of subjectivity in the way that we see the world, how we should be a lot more aware of our biases and our perspectives, because I think a lot of the time feminist scholars recognise their biases as women. Therefore, that's why they see their perspective as a valid one to come into the like, wider discourse. Because if the majority of stuff that we've been studying for years and what's been perceived to be like valid knowledge has been written by white males who are often straight as well, or at least to the public eye, it's like well then why are they so defensive that their perspective may just be their version of the truth? So I think this trying to strive for this objective truth that has to apply for everyone is so counterproductive, and if anything we can have a truth, but we do need compromise to an extent. But I just think they're not willing to the I don't want to say the elite, but like, you know, the stuff that we deem as like valid knowledge, people don't want to compromise because they've been conditioned to put it on this hierarchy for so long. Like, of like,
you have an example of one of these truths?
Just people like Plato, Kant that we learn about.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they didn't have valid ideas, but please also let me know that this man didn't speak about women, consider women in his perspective, because he didn't see us as on the same level as men. And also he didn't see humans, the literal quotes where he says he didn't see black people as actual human, like subhuman. How can I be glorifying a man and his ideas if he did not think that they applied to people like me?
And that was the truth of some people in his time as well. Like, that's what I meant in terms of like things, in terms of truth. There's an evolution of truth, and it's the more we include other people in, it's almost kind of like, I think that's why intersectionality is really important as well, because the moment we start seeing how different people within different groups and how that obviously intersects with feminism, for example, we can then see like.
Can I just say something about intersectionality? I've been flipping it since this BLM thing, especially. I'm someone who likes debates, but they've especially like increased since now. And I found myself so much having to defend intersectionality, which is hilarious because I didn't really understand it myself like 6 months ago. But essentially, it's perceived, at least to most people for some reason on like, you know, social media, as like this oppression Olympics. When that is not the case. Come on, it's not about how many identities I have. Oh, I'm disabled, I'm black, and I'm trans, and all this. Like, it's not a competition. It's not about feeling or wanting to be oppressed with this. I'm irritated by this idea that you want to be a victim. I'm fully aware that I can do whatever I want, my heart's desire, like, you know, within good reason. But I'm just saying that a couple of things make it perhaps a little bit harder. I'm not saying I'm not going to try and I'm going to revel in this like oppression. But the idea of intersectionality is simply, I think one of the best ways to describe it is how like Kimberly Crenshaw, who actually came up with it. Like, a lot of people critique the people that are talking about it and not the woman who came up with it. Like, come on, if you're going to critique it, come with the original thing. But basically, she's a black woman. She created it on the premise that feminism has been dominated for a good time by white women, even though it's meant to be for women. It becomes synonymous with white women. So like black women's perspective of a women, the ideas get, you know, clouded. And then anti-racism, of course, most people agree with the premise of being anti-racist, but obviously, even in BLM, which was, not BLM, sorry, just in this like fight against police brutality, for example, you only really see black men. Whereas if you look at any movements, or even just like people who have been dying at the hands of like police brutality, or even women who were actually leading these movements in the past, but we only learn about MLK and Malcolm X. I'm not saying they were amazing men, but I'm saying where are the women, which is like the question. And so that's why even in anti-racist discourse, patriarchy is like seeped into it. So that's why intersectionality is asking. You've got women, you've got black people, but black women, what's the...
sorry to interrupt you, but there's something that Abibat said that was very like important. Like, you can almost say that truth is depending on perspective, because back then there's a reason why. But I know, but there's a reason why the history books and everything paints most men as the heroes and most of the stories, because even from then and even going back centuries further, when women are seen as beneath men, like there was no equality at the time. So history, as they say, is written by the victors. And even now, in regards to the BLM thing, some people's truth is that black people are not equal. Like, black people are primitive, that is what they believe because that's what they've been taught. So the whole perspective of intersectionality is very important because it's about tackling that issue. That's why I agree with people.
And even talking about Kimberly Crenshaw, because I studied her for a bit. She was actually a lawyer, and the reason why she literally had to name she had to name this is because she was actually doing some cases for women, especially for black women, and she literally looked at like when their cases are taken to court for women in general, the amount of like perspective that the judges might have about white women was very, very much different from that with the black women. The black women were not only having to deal with, oh yeah, some women, my husband, women can have abusive husbands, but it was different for some black women. Was like their husbands were abusive. Also, they didn't even have access to education to even then bring their cases to court and stuff like that. She was really, really looking at like the court system and our black women. Although women had issues, the women who were literally not even benefiting a lot from the systems even in place, like having going to almost like a center for women, for example. Some black women didn't even have access to that, or even money, or even the right education to know this is the people I have to contact. And some white women did, and it wasn't. They're all women, of course, but then it's even within that. Their race still kind of played such a huge part in terms of what they had access to and what
the laws
they
were
didn't.
allowing black women to be able to have 2 strikes at the back to basically say, look, it's not just being a woman but black, because with black men they could go to court and say, it's my race. Women could go to court and say it's because I'm a woman, but black women it's like, wow, why are you coming here with all these different etc. Did you want to say something?
No, I agree with everything. I agree with everything everyone has said about women. You know, that's 100%.
Okay.
The only part I don't agree with is the truth part.
Okay.
When you say truth is about perspective, the whole reason it is truth is because it's objective.
Okay.
Perspective is subjective. Now, I remember when she mentioned Immanuel Kant.
Okay.
You get me? And you said he was a racist, which can be true. I don't know if he was. You know,
he is.
Okay, he was a racist.
He was a racist.
Yeah. Okay.
Very much so.
I'm gonna try and separate someone's work from their attitude. Now, Einstein, for example, he came up with a theory that's helped every single person on this planet.
Was Einstein talking about human rights?
No. I'm just talking about.
But that's what's important, though.
You know, I understand that that's important, but I'm trying to say that his work is still valid despite his personality.
That's why I said Kant's work as being valid, but I'll need to be able to apply it to whether it considers the, people who aren't him.
Yeah, 100%. Like when it comes to women, obviously, you know, their perspectives have to be taken out.
I don't think we can pick and choose. That we can't pick and choose and say, oh yeah, no one is even. I did philosophy. I studied philosophy at A level. I enjoy philosophy thoroughly to the extent that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna start a flipping tutoring scheme on this. But then at the same time as well, the way I was taught about Kant, I wasn't given the full image. Just like the way intersectionality, for example, is saying, oh yeah, and this intersections of different people have these struggles, and then that keeps them away from getting this. The same was not given to us in philosophy, because the way Kant was taught to us was that he's a good man, he's done XYZ, his theory is excellent, and that's it. If you want to give anyone information, you need to give them every single part of it, and let me decide what I'm going to.
That's why we have people standing outside of Winston Churchill's statue, because they're being conditioned that he was the best man on the planet, as if my man was on the front line.
No, I understand.
Even back in the day, Christopher Columbus was taught to us as a hero. Like he just found a piece of America.
People were already living.
And he discovered it.
He found somewhere people were already living.
Like it was pretty much shut down. He sailed, found a piece of land, America.
And I just think with the idea of truth, I feel like in terms of having that only exists in maths, and that's it. You can just say 2 + 2 = 4 in maths.
The thing is though, there could be an objective truth, like but I'm just saying, no one necessarily knows what it is.
I'm not talking about the personality. I'm talking about the work. Now, she said that you can't pick and choose. I beg to differ, because, for example, if you say you can't pick and choose.
You can pick and choose, but when you show me the full image, because if everyone really knows the full image, I can assure you, you will not be picking. But in my opinion, if you're picking just to now see only the good in it, if I'm telling you that this theory is excellent, I'm also telling you, by the way, this guy said people like you are subhumans. Just so you know, side note, so you can pick aspects of that you want to know, but then when you relay that information on, you're going to be like, this part is good, but then however, this guy in himself is problematic.
No, I agree with you.
But it's just the fact that, because you're saying pick and choose, to even pick something and leave the rest alone is to say, I've chosen something good out, and I'm just gonna, because that's how dismissal begins. So just about picking and choosing, I feel like whenever you give information to someone, and if we're picking, okay, this is a good part, and that's the only picking and choose, like an artist, like the argument you were making, I don't think it's enough. I think that separation, as as much as it can make sense to some people, I think it's very, very problematic. And now referring back to Kant, we need to teach people things as a whole, and then whatever you decide to do, pick and choose, then you can then move on from there. And just like in relation to like feminism as well, it's just to show the different sects at which like people are oppressed at this sect, but then feminism as a whole, like it can't just exist like that. I don't know, do you get what I mean?
No.
Oh, that is so rude.
Well, I do agree with you to some extent. I think that people should be given, the full information, which they weren't. So they were told that Kant was a good guy, Einstein was a good guy. They all
still are not being.
And still, which is wrong, and I agree there. But you still can't take away their work because they've done amazing things.
Yeah, she's not saying that.
But that's
She
what
wants
she's saying.
to teach Kant. Do you get what I mean?
Just give them the full story.
Yeah, exactly. Give them the full story, and then you can then
make your own choice from there. Exactly. But from when you only give one side, it already reveals your agenda.
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? Of how you want to revere these people in society.
And that in itself is oppressive, regardless of how you put it forward.
Can we talk about how feminism also, as much as I don't think the discourse is as much at the forefront as it should be, a lot of feminism actually talks about how patriarchy is actually detrimental to men as well. So like how it's actually men who are being negatively affected, because I did a lot about sexual violence in conflict, and it was so interesting because even the way how men, when they are like being subject to sexual violence, how how you have war crimes and like the UN and laws and etc that you can bring to them. It wasn't until like 2013 that men and boys were recognised as being subject to sexual violence as well, because it was just deemed as something just inevitable in war, which shouldn't be okay, and also means that men wouldn't come forward, much less women who don't come forward a lot anyway, with like when reporting these things.
Even to bring it back to present day, like even now, if a man was to come out and say that he was sexually assaulted in any way, the chances are he's gonna hold corn for some people. It's like, oh, you're a guy, you gave it. All of that is down to the patriarchy.
Hence the reason why we need to dismantle patriarchy.
But some people that comes back to the whole woman who wants to stay at home. If we talk about saying that we want to dismantle patriarchy and how it operates in our lives, how can we be complicit with people who are okay with settling with it and being complicit if it's just for the sake of choice?
The thing is, in respect of it, as much as dismantling is an ideal, but it's almost kind of like, how, for example, some feminists might be like, because you're a girl, you're using you can use your beauty in a way to kind of like, please men, like make money, for example. Make money from looking good.
OnlyFans.
Honestly, and I personally don't have a problem with that. And as much as we can say dismantle patriarchy and things like that, it's kind of like for generations, patriarchy has literally made it in such a way that these specific women have chosen time and time.
So what are you saying? Is it not practical? Is it not practical because you literally just said dismantle? I'm not saying. I know you said it.
It's an ideal. Definitely, it's an ideal to dismantle patriarchy. But the length at which patriarchy is literally almost gone down every single. Imagine having a building and at the top someone's just constantly pouring water and it's just going straight.
Yeah, trickles down.
Literally, yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, are we contradicting ourselves by, out of the virtue of choice, letting people carry on doing stuff that are actually perpetuating patriarchal ideals?
Thank you.
No, but then the thing is, I think it's very, very.
You can't take away people's choice.
I don't want to.
No, that's what you're going to do. In essence.
No, I'm not. I'm not doing it.
You're going to.
I'm just saying. I'm asking when people ask questions. I don't like when people tell me I'm doing something when I'm asking a question. If I don't ask the question, who's going to?
You're bringing up the point, so I have to address you specifically.
No, but word what you're saying properly. Don't say I'm doing. I'm not doing jack. I will stay. I told you I want to stay at home if I can. I just pray that I have the privilege to do that.
You were speaking for a group of people. Just now.
Tell me what I said.
No, she was speaking, like, it's the questions directed at you.
Okay.
It's a
Let me rephrase it. Now, you can't take away people's choice. In this scenario, I can't say this without saying you. That's
don't take it personal.
No, it's not personal, but he did just clarify that he was speaking to me. So.
Oh, you're speaking to her?
No.
What? You stay out of this. You know what's going on.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. You, a person who wants to take away people's choice because you think that anyone who, for example, wants to stay at home is upholding patriarchal views. You want to take away their choice.
So
no,
who
that's
does
not the
it?
question. The question is, if we're gonna say dismantle patriarchy,
Yeah,
is that practical? If we're
Yeah.
saying by virtue of choice,
yeah.
there are things that you can do if you want that are intrinsic, like are in like literally
That
ingrained in
embedded in
patriarchal
patriarchy.
ideals.
I get, and that
So
comes
that's
from-
what I'm saying.
yeah.
Like, what do we want? I'm not saying there's
No.
always this thing to. There's not always a goal. Like this whole racial injustice thing, to an extent, the goals aren't always going to be clear. But it doesn't mean you don't start. You don't get anything if you don't start doing something. You are always people like to sit around. Like,
Very
what do we want to
disagree.
do? What do we want to do? Like obviously you need to have actions, etc., etc. But a lot of the time, the journey is the goal, if that makes sense. And so with this now, I'm saying we can say offhand things like, you know, we need to dismantle patriarchy. Patriarchy is not good for anyone. But then we also are saying choice is fine, which it is in essence. But also, what are these choices like? You're talking about truth to an extent. Everyone has ideas, yeah. But at the same time, some ideas are better than others. And so, which ones are we entertaining? Is what I'm saying.
Who's to make that distinction?
No, that's what I'm saying. Subjectively, some ideas are better than others. Otherwise, we wouldn't agree on most stuff, like in our laws, for example. But I'm just saying, like,
Just because a lot of people agree on one thing doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct thing, or
I
it's the
know
right
that.
thing, or it's the better thing.
I know that, but we came to the decision because, like I just said, truth is subjective. And so, for some reason, we came to the decision on a lot of things that are now our laws and customs, and like why you don't just punch me, like because you don't like what I say, because it's not acceptable socially.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Like things like that. So yeah, truth is there are truths, but like we have to like practically we have to like establish which truths are best like to compromise for like to function as a society. But what my point is that of course I want certain things to evolve, like how I'm so frustrated with the educational system, for example. But at the same time, you know, you need choice, but also not everything is gonna contribute to like the wider goal of like what we want to dismantle.
Yeah, I know. I made the comment. I said dismantle patriarchy, but then at the same time as well, I also said some women who, as the way patriarchy trickles down, I don't see why some women actually end up using it to their favor, because that is a system that they use. Obviously, that carrying out that action kind of prevents the end goal of
because I understand it,
patriarchy.
but understanding doesn't justify. So now let's say if I asked you, do you think it's okay? That's different to I understand it. Do you know what I mean? So what do you think personally?
I personally think it's okay. Although it is contradictory to the end result, I think it is okay because it's generational. It's been happening for so long. Imagine literally like conditioning someone into thinking this is the normal system. As nice as it would be to dismantle every negative part of patriarchy, it still remains true today. It's so literally, we're literally saturated in it today that some women find no other way but to resort back to patriarchy.
See, this is the thing. Sorry, I agree with you.
The advantage.
I don't have an answer in terms of whether I think it's okay, but I'm now trying to bring it. Let's talk about racism. People are conditioned to have racist thoughts, and it's literally embedded in our society that racism is like now structural, systematic, whatever you call it. We are not comfortable. I know I'm personally not comfortable with people who. Wait, let me finish it. No, listen. This is the thing. Like, if you want to come to a logical conclusion, I'm not comfortable just because someone's been conditioned to be racist to be okay with that. I don't think that should be a choice anymore. It should be something that has to be like challenged.
I think the logic makes sense, but to compare them side by side, because the issue of that I just made, I think to compare them side by side,
listen, this is why
it weighs out the same, because now you're using logic. Logic is to say that there's logic literally goes with thinking, logic, rationality, having a exact end result.
No, but listen, this is why I think we're okay with it. This is why
incomparable.
You know, sexism. This is why I think we're okay with it. Because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the time, being subject to racism is not to anyone's benefit. Whereas being subject sometimes to sexism, you don't have to pay the bill.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's why I think we're not as angry about women who are choosing to do things. That's what I'm saying. That's how I feel like.
For those who can't see, Our fourth member Faridah is in the background.
But that's the
Faridah,
logical
hi.
conclusion that's being drawn.
You cannot. What do you mean? What about the racist benefits of Asian people saying, okay, you're smarter, so be that
No,
positive
no, it
reinformation?
doesn't, because when we talk positive discrimination in that sense, like when we think Asian people stereotypically are smarter, it's actually detrimental to a lot of Asian people in studies because it actually
Faridah, would you mind grabbing
makes
the
them
seat and
feel,
like putting it here so like the mic will pick you up?
like not sufficient. If you go, I mean, like there's actually a lot of mental health problems that I've heard of being associated with those positive stereotypes. I'm not saying like economically they're not prospering, but at the same time, like mental health wise, there must be a reason why it's stigmatized in those communities, because you're always trying to attain to something that's not even real because it's a stereotype that's been perpetuated by white supremacy.
I'm not in a rude way. You just talk really fast and
Oh, sorry.
I'm a bit dumb. So essentially, what you're trying to say that no, I'm not dumb at all. I'm really smart.
Okay,
Sorry. I see the point you made, but it's now. You know how you said the truth is subjective. So
Yeah, I think so.
damn, I really hope that makes sense. I'm thinking.
No, come on.
You know how you said the truth is subjective. That thing that you think not paying the bills is something that's always good. It might not.
I never said that.
You said that it's a benefit.
No, but it is a benefit. Women do benefit from not wanting to pay the
The thing is,
bill.
you made the comparison initially.
But then
when I made the initial comparison, and I said it's the incomparable. You then go on to make the comparison and like, oh yeah, but at the same time, women enjoy aspects of it.
No, my point is, why do we not have the same energy about racism that affects people when we say it's not a choice, but when women make a choice that might be perpetuating patriarchy,
because
it might be okay because it's the woman's choice. Like, it's not. I'm not happy with somebody's choice to be racist.
Because if I've made that choice, racist choices.
No, I agree with that actually. How can someone have a choice to be racist?
Racist choices.
No,
choices.
so that you choose to can't be fine with, like, if you presented something to you and you've been conditioned.
And you choose not to educate yourself.
Yeah, then you've
racist
chosen not
Yeah,
to.
that should be
I feel
wrong.
like I'm not saying this is racist choices have literally wider long term. They've been ingrained literally. Racist choices are not. I don't
Same
think
with
they're-
sexism.
Sex.
Well,
I'm
can you
saying
finish your sentence?
when I say sexist choices, in terms of if I choose to, I don't know, make an OnlyFans, I want to work, blah blah blah, because I know I'm going to benefit from it. I'm not saying I'm not affecting wider society, but that's my money I'm making, and I'm going home, and that's that. Like
Absolutely.
I don't feel like it's that's why I'm like they're literally two different conversations.
But
I
it
can't
doesn't
lie. I don't feel
benefit
like
the
it is.
cause though, because you're literally objectifying
To the
women.
male gaze.
Yeah,
But then
you
if
are.
that woman, I'm not.
Do you think
If that
prostitution should
woman,
be?
if that woman, I don't think prostitution should be. I don't think
You think
it
should
should
be
be. I'm
No.
not going to say it should be legalized, but
Yeah.
I think that for some women who have no choice, some women have no choice but to literally sell their bodies. If we have
That should
systems
be
like
the fault
that,
of the government.
I
That
feel
the
like- I
government
feel
should.
So
like-
women have no choice.
I think that
So women-
but I
in
thought
a lot-
feminism's about making the
in a lot
choice
of-
to
The
watch
choice for
everyone's
them,
sexual
yeah.
identity.
can't be
No,
talking
some
about
women
yourself.
can choose. Some women can choose that. Some women, we have like women like Megan Thee Stallion. She literally says it herself. I literally
I love
enjoy.
Meg.
I literally enjoy shaking my bum. Like she enjoys doing that, and that's
That's
what-
fine, but she has a lot of
that
feminist
that is
critiques.
her, and that's exactly that is her choice, and I respect her choice.
I'm just saying
So
that
how do you
sex
guys label female sexuality without this over-sexualization? Which I do agree is true.
subjective.
Exactly. So what is this argument if
It's
purely
not an
subjective?
argument. The argument is, my point is, why are we less angry about women who make choices that perpetuate patriarchy when we haven't got the same energy for people that are complicit in racism, because they're both perpetuating systems that we don't like, that affect us negatively. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
But
I'm not saying I have the answer or that I
that
think
is-
something's right or wrong, but I'm just saying, is there a reason why we are less likely to critique women for making choices that contribute to patriarchy? Because I haven't
Yes.
heard
Thank
anybody
you.
defend people who are fine with racism just because they've been conditioned to it, because that's all they know.
Can you
Like, I can
mention
understand
subjects
something
of
but not
this
justify it.
perpetration or this perpetration? Yeah. Mention examples of it.
Of what? Which one?
Of you're saying, we know when people take uphold to patents.
patriarchy.
Patriarchy.
Oh, we were talking about earlier when you were here, just
Okay.
things like maybe at the home. I think it's a good idea, maybe practically, for like a woman to be at home, because biologically and like
It's
if
not
the
even
woman.
biological.
No, we went through like breastfeeding and stuff, but maybe like also the woman might just happen in that relationship to be the more nurturing one.
Cool.
Practically, that makes sense for the woman to stay at home. But there's a lot of women who, regardless of any of that, they just think because of biology and conditioning that they should definitely be the one at home and they're completely happy with the idea of not working, which is fine and that's your choice. But the question is, does that actually help perpetuate what we're saying we disagree with, which is the system of patriarchy?
If they choose to do it just on the fact that they're women, then they're being sexist.
Internalized sexism, yeah.
So then we should stop them and make them realize.
How you gonna
Why
know?
should we stop them though?
No, not stop them. No, we teach them.
So
Not
basically-
stop.
How you gonna
Stop is the
know?
wrong
How you
word.
gonna know?
That's one
How are you gonna know if it's internalized
or if it's not?
Yeah, if it's not. How, that's
You
impossible
just
to
teach
know.
them the knowledge and then they make
So
the decision afterwards.
Yeah, but if they know
You're
if it's
assuming
internalized,
it.
if something is internalized, then they might not be aware of it.
Well, I don't know how we'll do that, but what we should do mainly.
What a question.
Sorry?
I said, what a question. Like, I get what
Yeah,
you
that's a
mean.
great question. The psychologist will answer that.
So it's like,
We still need to give them this information about sexism and feminism and their conditioning, and then they can make
So
their
this is
choice.
the thing, but you're basically arguing that you don't think that's a good thing then.
No, I'm not. No, what I meant to say.
Why
I
do you
didn't
need to
say
educate
stop.
them? Why do
Stop
you need
is
to
wrong.
educate them?
If we teach everyone that regardless of your gender, you can do so and so roles, then that's fine. Obviously, we live in this world; it's not a vacuum.
But some
yada,
people
yada,
are
blah,
out
blah,
there,
blah.
they're literally, their living is based on teaching people that their gender makes them inclined to do things based on their gender. So you have people like popular followers, like say Jordan Peterson,
Yes.
who have studies that I'd love to look into studies myself properly.
Yeah.
But that are actually proving that the more that you increase gender equality in a country, women are more inclined to actually go into caring roles regardless. So that means that you've controlled the conditioning, I guess. But the idea is that
How long was? Do you remember the specifics of that data? How
it's
long
just,
has
they
it
did it in like
been?
some Scandinavian countries
Have
or
you checked
something.
the methodology?
This is my point. That's what I'm saying supposedly, because I'm not convinced by this.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not gonna lie. I don't really care if women have been conditioned to not necessarily go to STEM subjects, because we need women in these places regardless. Like I remember even doing an essay in second year, group essay about AI and artificial intelligence. Literally, robots are not recognizing black people or using sexist language, because who are the people feeding the robots?
What?
So do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't really care how women have been conditioned, because we still need them in these places regardless. So it's actually like to people's advantage. Diversity is an advantage in these places. We talk about diversity of thought, but that's why I'm glad we looked at perspective and your viewpoint of the world, because I don't care you have every political spectrum in the room. If everyone's a white straight male, expect not much stuff to be done to the full extent. So what I'm trying to say essentially is that all I'm exploring is I'm all for people, I guess, making the choice to stay at home if they want to shake their ass and make money off it if they want to in the public eye. But I'm just trying to explore my own, maybe perhaps internalized sexism, why I'm not angry about that in the same way that I am about people who internalize racism, regardless of because it's not helping.
I hear that point. For me personally, I don't think they're two equal points of comparison. Looking at the choice in sexism and the choice to be a racist, I think they're two different.
It's not a choice though, because we just spoke about it being internalized and conditioned.
Yeah, obviously I'm saying that, but I mean, for some women, I can be the most. If I could twerk, if I could shake, I would do that.
Take out the snap.
If I could do that, I would as well. And it's not because I don't have the knowledge, or I don't. Some women literally think by doing that, they literally, because some men literally see it as women shouldn't be doing this. Some women literally say, I'm re-owning, I'm reclaiming. Kim Kardashian, as a feminist, she posted. Kim Kardashian calls herself a feminist, and she used that feminist claim to post a naked picture of hers. She's labeled herself as a feminist, and that's her re-owning and reclaiming her body by posting it. And feminists came for her and they said, do you know what, babes? This is not what feminists. You see,
that's what I mean. You've got Catholicism, you've got evangelism. That's just what's gonna happen.
You're gonna have different branches of it.
Exactly. That's why I feel like, for me, in that, I feel like it's so different. Because the thing with racism, I know it's not. I get what you mean, and when you put them side to side, it's that idea of choice. But we're saying you can't. There's no choice to be a racist. You can't carry on being like this X, Y, Z. But placing them side by side, I don't think they're too.
I'm just saying, not every feminist wants to dismantle patriarchy.
I just want to say that I think feminists contradict themselves. Yeah, in a way.
No, feminists
No.
contradict other feminists.
Yeah, feminists contradict other feminists. Yeah. So some feminists think that you have to work, and pay the bills, and others they don't want women to stay at home because it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Because, for example, do you think prostitution should be legal? I don't think it. I can't say legal because that's a bit mad. But I feel like if
There's
you're a
feminists-
feminist, it contradicts the whole
This
point.
is the joke though.
Because you're selling your body, you're increasing the risk of men objectifying women.
But also,
Do you know what I
I've
mean?
seen like the reasons for legalizing prostitution, and they seem pretty valid in the same way that we have legal abortion, for example, because of like the safety
Like what?
precautions.
What?
Things like
Safety.
how basically you can't go to the police if you've been raped because you shouldn't be being a prostitute in the first place, for example. So like getting care for that.
Well-
That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but I feel like
Even abuse as well.
yeah,
Like,
abuse
feeling
especially.
Well, that's a bad
Yeah.
law, and that shouldn't be. But I'm just saying that being a prostitute puts you at high risk of.
Apparently, isn't it? If it's legal in Spain, I think, and apparently, I don't
Like
know.
the
But
red-
things
the
are just
red
better.
light.
Like
The-
it's less
the
less
red-
people even want to
I think
be.
it's called the red. They have in the UK. They have like the red.
Is that in Amsterdam?
I'm so-
Yeah,
that's in
yeah.
Europe. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Germany.
That's
But,
what I would say.
yeah, I just.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
No, sorry.
I'm asking a question. I'm not telling anyone anything.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, how can you say stop objectifying me, and then you turn around and do this? That's what I want to know.
Because objectification will happen with or without women in other countries. I can attest to this. Women in other countries who cover their head to toe, they're still getting objectified.
That's
That's
very
not the
true.
point. That's not the
No,
point.
it
That's not
is
the
the
point.
point.
That's not the point. No, that's not the point.
People assume that you need to be shaking. People assume that you need to be twerking. You need to be half
That's not what
naked.
he's
That's
saying.
You
not
do not need to be.
That's
You
not
do not
what
need
he's
to be naked to be
He's saying the
objectified.
feminists that say don't objectify me. He's saying why are you turning around and doing something that's causing objectification?
Why is it called
You're
objectification?
You're
She said you can be walking.
perpetrating
She just said you can be walking on the
Okay.
street. What did you say?
Can I say something? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that is a cause.
It's
of
not a cause. It's
objectification
not a
because
cause.
sorry,
That's my mistake.
That's not
I
what
know.
we're saying.
That's not
yeah,
what
I
he's
know.
saying.
But at the end of the day, like Abibat said, there are people covered from head to toe that still suffer from sexual assault. They suffer from objectification and that. So it has nothing to do. Even making prostitution
That's
illegal
not
and
what
all.
he's saying.
I'm not saying, but I just want to point out something. There's a reason why I don't feel it should ever be illegal because the only reason there's a market for it is because of men. Or just anyone that's interested in that. But mostly it's men. That's my point.
I'll say, look, that's not my point.
Okay, what's
You're
your
telling us things we already know.
Okay.
In fact, in the Middle East, they're more serious about these things, and sexual assaults statistically happen there more than they do here.
Okay.
So I'm not saying it's a causal thing. I'm saying it contributes to it. Like,
Because you're not gonna be able to change every man in the world.
Okay.
Do you get me? And it's gonna be a problem of fighting a battle that keeps creating itself.
Yeah.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
You know when women go to like male strip clubs and like Magic Mike and stuff,
yeah.
are women not in that case objectifying men? Like why is it not a thing that women objectify men in the same way that
Patriarchy.
men objectify
That
women?
would be a
I think-
good
I
point.
think
Are we
if
seeing
we're
them as
saying-
humans when like we?
I think that one is a power dynamic thing because for the longest time it's almost like saying, you know how people are like, oh, why can't black people be can't be racist, for example, that kind of thing. Regardless of how many women who go to these strip clubs and they'll watch, we'll cheer X,
Oh,
Y, Z.
okay, I get what you
When
mean.
we
Yeah.
carry ourselves back into the real world, the reality still remains that it's a very, I don't think
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
matriarchy can, I don't know, exist in my family, like your mum's the matriarch.
Yeah, another alternate dimension, let's say.
not-
but-
The reality remains, this patriarchy is very
because
much...
it's true because the way that men are then perceiving women can then be perpetuated in other like sectors of life because that's why feminists talk a lot about not separating the private from the public,
exactly.
because if you are more likely to have power in institutions, then your like biases can then like be perpetuated in those spaces.
See?
Oh.
No, it's not anything. I'm just trying to ask a question.
Okay.
Mm.
go on.
Personally, I think we should attack the problem from all ends. And I'll
Okay.
give you an example. There are studies that show that pornography contributes to why men feel entitled to women and sexual assault and everything. Now, as a feminist, obviously you don't want that to happen, of course.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and then you support
No,
the
but
people.
listen, that's because isn't it in those videos and stuff? It's because there's like literally like patriarchal like storylines where the
Yeah.
woman's like submissive to the
Yeah.
man. Whereas if Megan's taken an ass with other women altogether with no men,
It's
maybe behind the cameras we could talk about that. But like at the same time, I feel like that's different. Like it's not.
how is
the
it
same.
different?
Because
It's the
there's
same
not
thing.
the man in the frame.
But there are women in there. Like, look, we talk about like freedom of sexually express yourself and everything.
Sexual
I
liberation.
don't know how else to say this. I don't know how else to
Sexual
say this.
liberation.
They are still contributing to the problem.
Yeah, it still contributes.
They're
more,
still
because you're still
contributing to
feeding
the
the
problem.
markets.
I think
And for the thing what he said,
what
he said-
I think I came
What do you
across it.
say?
Well, he said that
Oh,
there's
I
no
don't know.
supply without demand.
Yeah.
If you cut off the supply, then the demand just has
You
to.
just have to go.
The
for it.
demand is still there because even deep down to like young girls being things happening.
Well,
with
it
them.
would reduce.
But that's
I think-
illegal. Yeah, but it will reduce and that's illegal.
But it will reduce
And that will
it.
become
Because
illegal.
illegal doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
But
No,
guys,
yeah,
it's,
but
not,
then-
it's not the women in the videos that is making men objectify them. It's literally the storylines and the way that
It's
they
the
frame the
storyline.
women. So I'm saying Megan's not being subjected to a man in her videos. It's different.
Exactly.
It is
You
different.
also have to remember, you know, not all prostitutes are doing it willingly, right?
Bro, that's illegal, man. Like,
Of course it's illegal, but it doesn't mean it's not happening.
it doesn't mean it's not happening, but it's kind of like outside what we're talking about
Do you think?
right now. Yes.
You said that if they take away, so a lot of people don't have the like. If it's prostitution is illegal, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Prostitution is illegal, but yeah, it's still happening.
It's still happening, but it'll happen more if it's not illegal.
I don't think
People
so.
think that, but I don't. I definitely.
Yes.
don't.
It just means
They
that people will be
definitely
safe.
do.
No, I think like
it's because one,
What?
no, when abortion, I'm not sure if this is the best
The
comparison,
Ireland
but when it was
example.
actually legalized, if anything, and once education started to increase, sex education, like imagine if ethical porn was introduced, abortion actually decreased.
in places like Ireland where women
I'm-
literally go through like backstreet, abortion is illegal.
Yo,
They don't know
we
if
know
it was
this.
or is.
No, you don't, 'cause you wouldn't say
that.
women,
No, we
go,
do.
women go through even worse. Like imagine, I'd rather now going to a safe doctor because this is legal now. I'm going to a doctor for this to happen rather than going to some back alley doctor who do a
And
worse
also
job
with that
as
doctor,
well.
you've been educated on how it doesn't happen again, or for something
Look,
like that.
I find it very difficult to believe that if you legalize something, it wouldn't increase.
I just told you that
Think
the
about
stats show
America,
that
this
it's
is literally
decreased.
Now, my
happening.
thing
So
with
much is historically
statistics-
been shown. In America, when they had, remember when alcohol was stopped, for example,
Yeah.
just I think it was prior to the war, there was even
one
much
in
more,
1940s.
there was even,
And then-
yeah, there was
yeah, you're
even,
right.
The
Oh,
reason,
yeah,
no,
that's
there's a
it.
reason for that. The reason why.
alcohol usage, alcohol intake literally doubled or even tripled when
She's
it was
right.
when it
They
was
started
literally
opening
made
illegal speakeasies, that's
from
why
Of course they did
speakeasies
because
and
it was
stuff like that.
illegal. That was the
But
only
it
way for
was
them
just-
to do it.
Exactly. So by making something
It's
when
not
it
gonna
when it
stop,
came back
yeah.
to
It's not
normal,
gonna
when it was
stop
back to normal, people were not having to. It was almost like when things
Can I
are
ask you
illegal,
a
do you know the desire or the want to even go to it even becomes increased because people
Can I
are
ask you a
people are
question?
stuck in at
Even
home.
right
They're
now,
like,
can I
Ask the- ask
one
the
more thing, I just want to say
question.
something before you ask the question. But even right now, like, the pubs just opened today, and now they're literally
People
rolled
were
up now
abusing
because
That's
there's
an
so many
isolated
people
incident.
heading to
Listen,
the pubs.
Let's
right
can
now.
you speak?
Listen.
I think it's a good example.
From what you're saying, it'd be better if we didn't have laws then.
Oh my god, no! The studies that I've seen have literally shown that not only does it decrease, but it's then safer.
But he's
Because-
saying that then you're saying he's well.
No, he's not.
Let him say what he wants
Go
to
on,
say.
say what you want to say.
Wait, am I not making sense here?
You
No,
are.
no,
but
I
I'm
think,
not
I
saying-
think, I think
I'm telling
there's
you.
a leap in what you just said. I think there's a leap of logic because you're then saying, oh yeah, let's not have any. No one is saying laws are not good or they're not in place. No one is saying that. But what in regards to prostitution is like the legalization of it. It literally creates a safety like net or even precaution. It's kind of like okay, if this is
It
legal,
says
women can.
absolutely impossible for you to be safe. Okay, not absolutely.
They have places like
It's
this.
I've
absolutely.
already
It's more
got,
like
you need to look
it's
into
more-
Spain and
more
not
at risk.
Amsterdam, I think.
How are you-
Because
how
then
are
you'll
you-
see
look,
the-
look,
How are
Listen.
you more at risk? I
Listen.
don't think so. I think if you've taken it that it's almost like when people work in a building site, for example,
Uh-huh.
we know there's so much things that can happen to them. What do?
Yeah.
We give them hats to wear for protection. They get
That's
knee
different.
pads. They get because of the nature of their job. And I think it would literally make sense. No one is saying put so much money in there. No one is saying make an influx. If you have a system of protection,
It's
for
actually
these
true. You don't
women,
have to like
you
everybody's
don't have
job
to
to know
like
that they should be
they
protected
should be
while they're doing
protected.
it.
Because
Look,
if we use the same
look,
excuse
look.
legally as well, black people to do some certain stuff, we were not allowed, and that was that, and we weren't allowed to vote,
Uh-huh.
and that was just that.
It's so true,
Like,
because
the
I'm not
lives
gonna
were
lie, no,
protected,
even
and that
call
was
it
that.
call it a joke, but even like doctors, they have to look after everybody. You could literally have a murderer come in, somebody who's just
So
gonna
you
do
look
a
after others.
mass shooting, and you're still gonna have to treat them, because regardless, it doesn't matter what we can't. We're going based off our own biases and whether we think that prostitution is like a respectable thing that should be like. I think you're worried about it being normalized as like a respectable job, which isn't necessarily true. People will still look down on job roles like how they look down on others, or they look down on people in society that they don't think should be doing what they're doing, but it doesn't mean they're not worthy of care. And I think even when you go into these spaces where you go and get the help, if anything, those people will be in place to then educate the people that are coming to them, maybe to even get out of what they're doing, if that sounds more reasonable.
I think some of these were false equivalences, and I think I've kind of lost where everyone is saying. So I want to ask a simple question now.
Okay.
Do you think prostitution contributes to the objectification of women?
Does it put them more at risk of it?
Does it contribute to the objectification of women?
As I said before, women will be objectified.
No, you can't.
Does it add to it? We're not saying
And that is now.
does it contribute?
That is now.
Contribution
That's what I
is
said.
not
Contribute isn't the sole cause.
Yeah.
Does it contribute?
I mean, prostitution happens now, so it's possibly could be.
You're dodging the question.
Yeah,
No, I'm saying it's happening.
No, but
now,
the thing
so it
is,
could be
regardless of
contribution.
your question, we've literally just said that if it was legalized, it would decrease. So even if we do agree it contributes, by legalizing it, you're decreasing
that's not
it.
a
It's
fact.
more like, yes,
Yeah,
I've literally
that's not a fact.
just told you. I don't have the studies on me
Yeah,
right
we
now.
don't
But
have it.
statistically,
Listen,
it does
can I
decrease.
say something?
Yeah.
Now, I read something. One guy came out, and if I told you men were just as likely to be victims of domestic violence as women, would you believe me?
Yeah, I know that they are. Like, I've seen that, yeah.
But they're not.
What? I
Because
saw that the other day.
you saw a statistic. But when you look behind how it's compiled,
What do you mean,
it's
like the
not
way
Yeah,
that they're
bullshit.
saying how?
Yeah.
But why?
what I'm saying is that you can get any results you want if you tweak the methodology well
Yeah.
enough.
No, I feel like
He's trying to
obviously
say
you'll
no-
get statistics, but it's how you interpret them.
No, then
I'm
what's
trying-
the
I'm
point
trying
of
to say-
the start?
I'm trying to say, because you're using, your whole argument is based on statistics.
What's
And
wrong with that?
are you
Is
trying
it
to say
I'm
that
about-
telling you what's
start-
wrong with that, that not all statistics are built the same.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like the
Specifically,
point
sorry.
is that the conclusion that was drawn was that people are better off if prostitution is legalized.
Based on the stats.
Based on like the
Based on
overall,
care,
like
just
yeah,
based
just
on-
in general.
Because the
it's
reason,
meant to
I
be.
think the moment, because we can't, honestly, in my opinion, you can't
wait.
and you can't extend, because the role, as Savannah said, the role of someone's job doesn't mean there's still not extension of care should not come to them. It's almost like, and we almost say prostitution as well doesn't just happen, just women. Men are prostitutes as well.
The thing
You have
is,
they're literally in America.
Yeah.
and
You have not
there's
still
a
answered the
huge
question.
percentage
No,
of-
we have because listen,
No.
your argument, your argument.
access.
Sorry, your argument is basically your argument.
Wait.
Wait. Your argument is basically that because some statistics, the way they gather the
This
information is not
the
necessarily
discussion
what
about
is
that, like-
counts as domestic violence. That therefore it's probably wrong. If you don't know the study I'm talking about, you can't even. Why are you making up hypotheticals just because you haven't seen the
I'm
study?
telling you.
That
the
doesn't make
potential
any
with-
sense. I
Okay,
could say
can I
you
ask
could
you a
say to
question?
me something that
Can I ask you a
statistically.
question?
Listen, you could say something to me, a study that you have said that you have seen, and I could say, yeah, but what if it was actually false?
And then I tell
What
you,
is
I
that?
looked at the methodology. I asked you, have you looked at the methodology?
I
You
said
did
no,
not.
so then it ends
So how can
there.
you know that? How can you know that it's proof?
How can
Because
you
you
know?
literally just say it's fact.
Because I'm saying that you haven't seen it either, so what's the point of going on
Yeah,
about what the chances that it's not
you're
okay?
not saying it's fact. You're the one who's saying it's fact. So how can
Yeah.
you
No,
be
I'm
fact
saying
if
I've
you're
seen
correct?
studies
I think,
that have
okay,
said
even
that.
apart, statistics behind, if something is affecting someone, extension of care, literally care is enough to actually reduce a problem. Because once you have structures of protection were made for black people, structures of protection made for any group, once protection is there, they're basically being taken away from some negative things like abuse. If you, let's say, I don't even know how to even give an example, but if I'm saying for every person coming into this house, you were signing an entry form to say I'm signing in, I'm signing out, and I'm putting my name down next to it, and I'm leaving. If things like that, we can then see, oh, XYZ, women can refer back to, oh yeah, this man, we did this or we did that, but I didn't like this, and this is what he did. That once you have structures in place, might not be the right example to give, but structures in place are so important because regardless of a profession, having structures in place are protection. Because she's a woman and because she's prostituted, you might not agree with that. Doesn't mean she doesn't deserve care. Women in prostitution, trans lives in prostitution, I'm saying, well, that's what you're saying is the fact that it's not. It hasn't been chosen. It's
just because it contributes to this. So, but then we also agreed that we're okay with women probably staying at home. Like, keep the same energy then.
We can't say women can be.
If they make the choice to do something. So I don't really get that idea.
You do know that most of them do it out of the need to, right?
Yeah, we've already established that.
Yeah, so that's contradicts what you just said.
How?
It's not their choice because they were forced to do that.
No, it's some and then some.
Most.
Okay.
But the thing is though, I think that regardless, if you haven't seen the same study I have, we can look at it separately. But most things have indicated that more time that once it's legalized, it's a lot safer and less people feel the need to have to go into something like that.
And like I said, without looking at the methodology, you can't say that's fact.
Yeah, you're
Oh my god, you tell me you look everything you cite, you look at the methodology, that's BS.
Let me finish.
Methodology of
No.
I don't even think no statistics is literally it doesn't even take statistics.
I think we need a referee.
It doesn't
I'll be the referee. I'll be the referee.
I can't be open a point.
You guys have to I'll be the referee.
Should we take it 2 minutes?
Let's go.
No.
No, let me
I need
finish
to
this
get
story.
this out. Now,
Okay.
the onus is on you to prove that your stats are right because that's the basis.
I know that.
Wait, let him finish.
Forget about stats.
But she brought up
But she brought
stats.
You guys can't talk over each other. So Abiba, you first. I want you to say something that you
No. You can't say fuck stats. She brought that up. That's why.
Yeah. It's common fine.
That's
She
what
did
you
bring
said.
that stuff.
I did, and I just said that I don't have a study. Like, I don't see why it's that deep because
you can't know it is that deep.
He made a bold statement. He said that when you actually, he says it makes sense to him that when you make something illegal, that it would decrease. And so I'm saying, well, I haven't seen that from stats. And then he's telling me I need to bring a methodology. That if I look into the methodology
You want us to bring stats to prove the humanity of people. In conclusion, that in my opinion, what you've said is you need to bring stats to prove the humanity of people. I don't even think stats are necessary at all.
Yeah, they are.
In
this context,
Listen.
you're trying to prove a point that it being legal is going to make it safer.
No, listen. He made a bold statement. He made a bold statement that it would decrease without even having read anything. And I made a statement that
what's the sample?
Listen to me. He made a statement that he thinks when something is made illegal, that logically it would decrease. And I said, well, I've actually seen studies that say the opposite. He hasn't seen them
and then he's asking you, how do you know that's fact?
Because I'm just saying, all I said is that I've seen studies that say the opposite. I'm just presenting.
She never said it was fact.
Should we listen back to that? She did say it was fact.
Did she? Yeah.
I said it's a fact.
I mean, we'll listen to
No,
it.
Even
if there's statistics that
No,
show
that's not the point because in essence it's still the same thing.
But the thing is, you said a statement without having looked at anything, and I said a statement and I don't have it in front of me, but I actually looked into it. So who is the one that needs to be defending the position?
If I told you black people are better off today than yesterday, do I have to bring stats to prove that?
What do you mean? But that's the thing, you literally said something like that without having looked into a study. And I said I looked at a study that said
do I have to bring stats to prove that? Something that is so blatant and obvious.
Yeah.
But what is blatant and obvious?
That when you make laws, think crimes in relation to those laws reduce. Or else we wouldn't have the laws in the first
I mean, to be fair, crimes reduce because it's no longer a crime.
You just said when you make laws, crimes in relation to that law, what does that got laws?
Can I ask you a question? If we legalized murder today, would it increase?
Thank you.
I think a lot of the examples that we're using, is, especially in relation to, I get your point. I think especially in relation to having an institution of care for prostitution, I think a lot of the points we're making are so extreme and uneasy. Murder, all these kind of examples. And when we're talking about, this is literally some people, it's
a legalized weed and we're saying turn around and say legalized murder. Like, I just think it's really odd to make that comparison. We know it's not equivalent.
Of comparison. This is, we don't need to be extreme to literally to see the importance of care for some certain sex of people. That's why I said, forget about the statistics.
So what you're telling me
X,
is,
Y, Z. I think it literally logically makes sense. Not even forget about protection. Once if there's an institution of care, the women are protected, less abuse. It's not saying it wouldn't happen.
No, wait. How is creating an institution of care? How does that mean
Because
that prostitution doesn't add to patriarchy?
Because she literally just explained that you'd be educating people, saying stuff that you don't like, but you don't. People abuse people that they objectify in those cases, do they not? So if you're telling people not to do that because it's now socially acceptable to talk about prostitution and the way that men are treating maybe women in these scenarios, but I think it would probably actually contribute to decreasing it.
I don't want to use this word. I don't want to use this word. If you want for a
service.
Okay, you're buying it. Sorry, that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You're buying a service. You can't separate both of them from each other. It's not possible.
I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that if you actually
what's the
educate
point?
people about, when you have sex with somebody in that context, and it's not that the person's being raped, which is objectification, then I think that actually would decrease like this whole patriarchy thing that we're talking about.
Is that
Rather than just leaving it just this illegal thing that we talk about and just happening.
We need to teach everyday boys. We're having to teach everyday boys about when women say no, it means no. Even the fact that you're saying would this decrease prostitution? I just feel like the argument's like for us to be needing to teach everyday people that no means no is to even show that regardless of objectification, regardless of even saying an exchange necessary, even in day-to-day interactions and day-to-day lives, these things are still needed to be
because
taught.
you have these
Exactly. Now that we're having this debate.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not gonna. I don't get how you don't get that.
I started this by saying you need to attack a problem from all angles.
Right. So what are
Just
these
because you
angles
do
that
one
you're
thing
presenting?
doesn't mean you shouldn't do the other.
What's that? What are you saying? These like vague stuff. What are you saying? I don't get it.
I think I'm done, man.
Well,
You just said one
I
thing
do
of
think
a
that-
perspective, like all these aspects. Like go on specifics. Then I don't get
I
it.
think we're going round in circles.
I don't think so. I think we just like established that more
think
time
we
you'll be able to educate people if it's socially acceptable.
Well, this is a very heated episode.
Well, it was supposed to be.
It was always gonna be, but